been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
I feel like 2024 is going to be magical.
FOF Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here on a Marlins off day. About a month into the regular season right here. It's Eli Sussman, Kevin Barral with me, and a first-time guest, Reese Stark, joining us.
Thank you.
Following us stuff really closely, and not just the Major League stuff, but the minor league stuff as well. As always, presented by Berger and Hicks, coming at you before every single series. Just the three of us on here, and I think we want to get out of here in plenty of time to enjoy the NFL draft. So it could be shorter than our usual hour, but we'll see how many tangents we go on between both levels of it. And yeah, that was a recently updated intro that I put together to update the ones that are on our streams, and as well as that clip from Jazz that he confidently gave at the start of the offseason that has not proved very prescient, depending on how you define magical. It has been really unique. We're going to get right into it quickly. This past series against the Braves, the Marlins getting swept again. This is now the 8th series. They've not won a single one. They are 6-20 on the season after dropping 3 straight against the Braves. Kevin, you boldly predicted the Marlins to win this series. What went different than you expected here for them to lose all 3, including the last one in walk-off fashion?
Yeah, I mean, 3 very tough games for the most part. At least the first and the last one, all winnable. You would have to go, to that. It feels like every single game had its own mishap, and you have to start with that first one with the, honestly, horrid base running from everyone in that first inning. Luis Rise not tagging the right, it's just such miscommunication that led to, honestly, what was a loss in that game. Weathers, I know he gave up those 3 runs, but still, for the most part, he looked good. Almost up until the end of the game, the Marlins had out-hit the Braves. They had 3 opportunities with runners in scoring position. It couldn't have gone better offensively for them, but when they needed to score runs the most, it just didn't happen. And again, I mean, the bullpen looked great that game. They shut them out basically, except that 4th inning. They looked really good. There's another way to put it. I mean, you don't have that mishap there in that first inning. This could look like a little bit of a different game here. Max Fried just dominates this Marlins team, limits them to only 3 hits. Tough start. Overall, a good start for Trevor. Has his moment, aside from that bottom of the 2nd. I don't think that was him in the 6th, and I was not able to watch the last game, but I definitely know there were some mishaps there at the end with, I believe, a Luis Ariz error, and just Tanner Scott, I think, struggled as well. So not a good series for the Marlins, compared to what you saw last week against the Braves. That was completely different, and they'll have an opportunity now with these next couple of series. We'll only get into one today, but next couple of series to really get it going and hopefully dig themselves out of the hole they're already in.
Yeah. So you could pick him up. Reese, he didn't watch the last game. Maybe you did. The Sixto's first start in a million years with that one, and an eventful one where most of the game playing from behind, and then at the very last moment turning back the clock to 2023 and actually rallying in the 9th, at least to force the game and continue going, but then losing on the walk-off. What were you expecting from Sixto in this one? We saw more of him than we'd seen in any outing in years. Got stretched out to 50-something pitches, 2 2/3 innings. What'd you like about that? And does it change anything about his role, you think, on this team moving forward?
No, I think we kind of or for me at least, I kind of saw what I expected. It was just really pitching to weak contact. You got I think he only had 5 whiffs in that game. a little rattled. It was his first start in front of fans since ever. It's AAA really. And then yeah, it felt like 2023 where everyone just kind of woke up at the end, and then the weird mishaps by the other team, and then they remembered it was 2024, and then it was 3 ground balls and a strikeout, or 2 ground balls and a strikeout, and it's kind of all over from there.
Sixto's velo was averaging 96, which is very. I don't think we've seen that this season. I don't know. At least I haven't. And tops out at 97, 98. You know, I mean, you couldn't have asked for better velocity there from Sixto. I didn't watch too much. I didn't watch at all of Sixto, but couldn't get many whiffs. Only 4. You would have, but I think it just came down. Yeah, the balk was horrible. I did see that video. That was really bad. But yeah, not much you could say there. You know, just offense didn't come through. That's what it comes down to.
I think his last 3 pitches. I saw someone say that were his fastest.
Yeah, that is what stood out, is how he maintained the velo. It was just as high later earnings. Something funky. If you look really close here, it's just change-ups at 90.
Eli, your mic is like underwater.
What about now?
Yep, there you go.
Yeah, sounds better.
Well, it was interesting from that aspect, in that his velo was about as high as we've seen it. He was able to sustain it for multiple innings, and he was really overthrowing even some changeups at the end that it wasn't really effective. And that's kind of ultimately the point here, is that even when he has well above average velo, like, his fastball shape is not ideal, and his secondary stuff just doesn't play the way that it used to. I think in this game he did get a strikeout on his changeup, but for the most part, what has stood out to me, like, this year, is how it's just a completely different pitch than it used to be. It was a special changeup before his injuries. The reason why it's like he's just a regular low leverage guy in this bullpen right now is partly because, like, he just has so few places to go to get whiffs. When he locates his fastball really well, works out. He got at least 1 strikeout in this one where he really painted a fastball and was hard to get to. But otherwise, like, people want him to, like, turn a corner and figure this out. And this is the type of year, unfortunately, or fortunately, both sides of it you could look at, they're in a position where they can give him this really long leash to figure it out. They really, there's no rush to squeeze him off the roster if you're 14 games under 500 at this point, and when you know what this guy used to be not all that long ago. So I think he's going to get more opportunities to figure this out, just not as a starting pitcher. Still kind of interesting. Let me see if I could find that balk for people that didn't see it. That was that was a really interesting one right here. Yeah, let me just pull it over. This was in the very first inning where
That's for the run.
it was runners on first and third, and he seems to just forget that it was first and third and not first and second. So he tries that in. You're not allowed to actually make that move right there. From that point forward, though, he seems to, like, settle in a little bit. It's also he's somebody that really embraces the showmanship and like the bright lights as well. So the fact that he was actually starting instead of not knowing when he would pitch out of the bullpen, I think that meant something to him. But, like, again, like, the results are the results, and he's going to get the way that this rotation lines up right now. It's, for anybody that missed it, Puck went on the IL, and even when he's going to come back, Skip made it clear that's going to be as a reliever, which really gives us a clearer definition of how this is going to shape up moving forward, where it's Luzardo and Weathers and Rogers and Edward Cabrera, and then Braxton Garrett, hopefully not too long from now. He's going to be making a rehab start again coming up tomorrow to kind of get back on track and closing in on his return. I guess the bright side is that the starting pitching outside of Sixto was the weakest link in this series. Outside of him, Trevor was really good overall. Yeah. And whoever it was that started the other game, it was Weathers that started the other one. Man, he was all right. But I guess that is the bright side, Kevin, that early in the season, the rotation was really slumping. When they couldn't win a single game for a while, it was because everything was kind of malfunctioning. But this continues a trend where most days, like, this is a pretty good group. And even with the injuries they've had, especially when Braxton comes back, like, all of a sudden this could be dare I say, an above average rotation for the bulk of the season, even though they've dug this big hole early on.
I mean, yeah, and you're getting Braxton back pretty soon, so you got to feel good where you're at with the pitching. Trevor looked pretty good for the most part. I believe only gave up 3 runs, 3 earned, 5 runs, 3 earned. So I don't think the box score speaks for itself, though. And with Weathers, it was definitely a weird start. He really went away from that sweeper that was really working for him in that other start against San Francisco where he struck out 10. Definitely made a pitch usage change there. And obviously, he still had a pretty good start for the most part, but at that bottom of the fourth is really what got him, and couldn't get. I believe went out there for the fifth, didn't finish that. So definitely a tough start there on some variations, but you could probably ask him, and he would probably tell you that maybe incorporating the sweeper should have been done. But aside from that, you're getting Braxton back. We'll see how he looks. He's pitching tomorrow for AAA Jacksonville, I think it is. And you're finally starting to get some continuity with the rotation. Really good starts for each guy. And again, I think you just need to stress how much it's going to come down to the offense to really now start backing up these pitches. If not, you're going to look like 2022, where it was really good pitching, just not good offense. And hopefully the bullpen also steps it up. We're going to talk about Fauché in a bit, but he's looked good. You're getting Puck back in that bullpen, which is obviously a plus for them. They're going to need him for sure. And, especially if Tanner Scott continues to kind of struggle, maybe start throwing him into, throwing Puck into high leverage, which we saw him do last year, and he was really good at it, at least for the first half of the season. So, there's different. It's finally starting to feel like this team's getting, fully healthy again in terms of starting pitching and pitching depth overall. I mean, you're getting Chagua very soon, so you're gonna have to make a roster move on that end, and I believe there's another reliever there. So they're going to make a lot of roster moves soon. So definitely good to see guys coming back, and it's starting to look consistent, which is what you needed.
Right. And here's a look at the 40-man with, as we were talking about right before the show with Reese about how Josh Simpson, tough luck on him. He's had a surgery that's going to push him back for the bulk of the season, probably after the All-Star break. Maybe he comes back, but unfortunately out of the picture for a while. With Chagua, he's going to return definitely within a week, if not sooner, for somebody that's already made a couple of rehab appearances, looked sort of like himself. So we'll have to tune up a little bit more down there in Jacksonville, but otherwise could be back as soon as this weekend, if not early next week. Then with Braxton, 1 rehab start at least, maybe 2. He was close to returning just a few weeks ago, and it seemed like he was on the cusp before having a setback. So don't want to make assumptions until he's actually in the mix. So they'll have to figure out how to plug that rotation spot in the meantime, with Puck out of it, with Sixto, as we kind of laid out, still not an ideal option in that regard, needing a lot of help. I think it's funny that Kyle Tyler has been up on this roster since like Saturday, and he hasn't pitched yet. So
he didn't pitch in the Atlanta game either?
No, that was my assumption. I went out on a limb and assumed, hey, he's at least going to pitch on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
At some point, and instead it was close enough that Skip just went to the guys he trusted in that bullpen, and for the most part, they did a good job to keep it close. At least he's getting paid big league money while he's up there.
Yeah, good for him.
But other than that, and then with Max Meyer, for anybody that's on the same page with that, seems like at least for the near future, he's going to be making these abbreviated 3-inning starts in Jacksonville to stay fresh, but not to overexert himself in order to actually save the real endings for later in the year. People know how I feel about that. He should be up right now in some sort of role, and it's a tough situation for him. But so there's no clear timeline for him to return to this mix. We also got the return of Christian Bethencourt in that final game. He came off the IL. He caught Sixto. He caught that whole game. I guess you could say overall he did relatively well defensively in that one. The way that he worked with guys, if not for that balk, then maybe they actually do end up winning the game or getting close to doing so. At the end, he had another hitless day at the plate. He is 0 for 26 on the season to this point. One of their, unfortunately, one of the biggest acquisitions they made all offseason because of how little they did to actually acquire real big leaguers over there, that he actually stood out. He was somebody that entering the regular season, the thought was he was going to split time pretty evenly with Nick Fortes, if not get the slight majority share of playing time there. How patient should the Marlins be on Bethancourt, Reese, before like doing something else, doing anything else? Because the combination of him and Fortes, it's somehow a downgrade from what they had last year, and that's saying a lot because that was already a big weakness for this team, a catcher.
Yeah, I don't know how much longer he's got. Honestly, my biggest regret for the offseason is not going after Gary Sanchez, which is just sounds depressing. Gary Sanchez was supposed to be the crown jewel. But I think he just would have fit well enough because he kind of can do a lot of the same things defensively. He's a little empty-headed sometimes, but he caught Blake Snell last year, and I saw him in person a couple games, and he kind of fit the part. And then I think he had a tying home run for the Brewers as a pinch hitter. So, like, even as a backup catcher, I think it would have worked out way better.
I was watching it live. It was a go-ahead home run he hit today off of Chapman at a 102 off the plate as well in a 2-strike count. His overall numbers kind of tell the story about Gary, that he's still like there's a lot of holes there that you can exploit, but at least occasionally he gives you something like that. Whereas like Fortes, this goes back to last year with him, where he's been as weak as any hitter that's getting consistent big league playing time. With Bethancourt, at least last year, it looks like a step up from Stallings. It looks like he was a guy that could give you that occasional power, that his throwing arm is still in relatively good shape, and that was the dimension he was supposed to help with controlling the running game. To some extent, he's been able to do that when he's been on the field so far, but like there's a certain bar that you're supposed to clear as an offensive player at any position in order to actually stick on a roster. But yeah, he is. He's doing absolutely nothing.
He wasn't even bad last year. He had 74 WRC plus, was a half WAR player in only 30 or 104 games. But as a backup catcher, that's not that bad. But now it's hitless, even though it doesn't look too different, except for probably way more ground balls. That's been the biggest issue because he hits the ball hard. It's just on the ground.
Yeah, and there's no real guy really making that push to kind of force the organization's hand and send someone up, over someone like a Bettencourt who, as well as he kind of may work with pitchers, you got to tell yourself that sometimes you just got to get some offense in here. And if you're not getting it from more guys, some of the other position players, you're going to have to try to get it from your catcher. And fortunately, Bettencourt still hitless, almost a 30% strikeout rate. He's barely walking. I mean, I don't think it could have gotten worse for this guy. And it certainly hasn't. I mean, no knock on Nick Fortes, but he's also been pretty bad to start the season too. I believe we were talking to Alex Carver, and he was kind of telling us how bad he's been in such a stretch. I mean, it's been negative WRC plus for him at points, in games, and it's been really bad. He had for the most part, a good series in Chicago, but aside from that, it's been tough. And defensively, I mean, definitely, the blocking is there, the framing is good, but you need to have an arm behind the plate, and Nick Fortes just hasn't shown that, unfortunately. But they got to ride with what they got, and if pitchers like throwing to these guys, then you got to respect that.
And to answer Sean's question, Marlins After Dark, about the salary difference, Bethancourt earning a shade over $2 million this year during one of his arbitration years. Stallings was projected to get over $3 million when they non-tendered him, but then he signed with the Rockies, and I believe it was a minor league deal that, even maxing out now that he's on their roster, it's less than $2 million.
It was a major league deal.
Yeah, whatever it was less than what Bethancourt is making right now by a little bit. And Stallings, to this point in the season, he's the clear backup there to Elias Diaz. But I mean, he's like 40% better than league average. He's like a 140 WRC plus in 9 games with more walks and strikeouts. And that's slanted, of course, a little bit from playing in cores to this point. But so far, he has single-handedly had more hits than Fortes and Bethancourt combined, while just being a backup guy over there. It was, so that looks terrible to this point, that decision right there, where there were some options out there, like Gary, like
Kirk Casale. I'm looking at it now. Kirk Casale is like killing it in AAA for Chicago. Which I probably same defensively, to be honest.
Right. And to me, in spring, it seems like a fairly easy ball back.
Your mic is underwater again, Eli.
Damn it. Well,
now you're good.
it seemed to me like they wouldn't miss Casali once he got squeezed out of the organization, and he didn't accept that assignment to AAA, and once he went to another place. But as it turns out, like he'd probably be somebody that they seriously considered bringing up at this stage of the game if he was still around and they still had that option right there. I know, Kevin, you were pretty high on Will Banfield entering the year. I think a lot of us were. We thought like some of the adjustments he made last year were legit, but he's not exactly making a strong case, is he, to squeeze on there?
Not all.
And
It's kind of back to what, it's kind of back to what we've seen in the years prior. And again, there's reason to think that he could bounce back. He's in a new level for the first time, AAA, and it's going to help him. That's a fairly hitter-friendly ballpark for the most part up there. So, I mean, he doesn't have to do much to earn the call-up at this point. He really just has to produce more than what Marlins catchers are doing. Bendix spoke about it, I think, on the Wahoo's broadcast not too long ago. It's just taking the next step. To take that next step, they need to really show that they're going to produce at a big league level. And Banfield has honestly the chance to do it. And I think he has a better arm than Nick Ford does. You can make the case that he probably hasn't, as good as an arm as someone like a Betancourt or even better. So reasoning to think that he could get called up is there. He definitely can. And maybe not now, but especially towards the back half of the season, you could see that, especially after the trade deadline, whatever happens there, and however the Marlins assess that position, because right now you can't trade either. It would have to be DFA candidates, or even a Fortes you could send down.
Yeah,
I don't think there's a replacement though inside. Even what's that? I don't forget his name. Paul McIntosh. He's struggling in Double A right now. Just rough for a guy who's already gone through Double A.
Yeah, struggling. I mean, defensively, it's been what was holding him back. But now to see somebody that was really consistently great hitter ever since joining the Marlins org, now getting off to the kind of start that he has, that's really frustrating. On the positive side, we got a suggestion to talk about Calvin Fauché, who has been, ever since he got called up, he didn't make the initial roster. He had like a tiny injury setback during spring training, got called up around 2 weeks ago, and he's fired 7 2/3 scoreless innings since then. He's got 10 strikeouts. He only gave up his first walk yesterday, and it didn't come back to hurt them. At this point, he's now pitching in a lot of high leverage situations for them, including last night, coming in when they were trailing and then staying in for the 9th inning in a tie game against the Braves right there. Getting it up there to 96, 97 relatively consistently. He's got a nice cutter as well that he throws to both sides of the plate. And his breaking ball, like he's got 3 pitches that are all interesting for different reasons, and it's coming together so far. Kevin, how much has your perception of him changed already in this really small sample compared to what you thought when he was just called up to fill out the bullpen?
I always knew he was a pretty good pitcher for the most part. Skip, since the start of spring training, was very high on Calvin Fauché. He said he had legit stuff. Originally when he didn't make that roster, it was thoughts that it was because of injury. It wasn't. It was just because he was not, there wasn't enough room in that bullpen. And Skip kind of noted that he still spoke very highly of Fauché no matter what. He gets called up. He's looked great. Another way to say it, it's been him and Brian Hoeing as the best bullpen arms on this team, throughout the first month or so of the season. And it's really good stuff. A lot of velocity from him that, his sinker averages 95. Cutter is averaging around 90. So, I mean, you've got to love what you're seeing, and that's certainly looking like one of the Bendix finds, best acquisitions right now of the offseason, on a trade where this was definitely one of the main pieces, but Vidal Brujan was expected to be one of the bigger, or I guess more notable pieces of that deal. And Fauché has shown some really good stuff, and he's made the case to really stay up here. I was thinking about it the other day. They're going to have multiple roster moves to make, You have Puck when he comes back, and Chagua. Those are 2 guys there. So we'll see what they do. Birch Smith obviously would be the ideal candidate, and then Kyle Tyler. But it'll be interesting to see how they manage that bullpen.
Right. Like Tyler's going to be the first one squeezed out. They've made it pretty clear how they feel about him or don't feel about him. He was just sticking around in case of emergencies over these past few days. So that will be the first corresponding move you would think when Chagua is ready. And then they played from there. But same thing to you, Reese, on Calvin Fauché, somebody that definitely was overshadowed by Vidal Brujan when they made that trade to acquire him. And Brujan has been pretty big disappointment. Even if the expectations were low, he's struggled like all around ever since. Like he's been on this team as a utility guy. But with Fauché, does this seem legit to you for a guy that in his past couple of seasons really didn't had a lot of traffic on the bases, a lot of inconsistency with his control, and then all of a sudden, in a small sample against a lot of high quality hitters, he's getting it done, and he's been pretty dominant.
Oh, I think it's real. It's very like both of his main pitches kind of play off each other, go completely different ways. It's a very like runny two seam, and then a really nice cutter, high velocity. He just lives in the zone, and that's my biggest complaint with some of the Marlins relievers, especially Puck and Scott when they get themselves in trouble. They're very similar to me, and like there's a lot of waste pitches. Fauché just doesn't waste pitches. Everything matters with him. Like you see how I think he had one that was like really just kind of off. And you can see how upset. Like he's like, no, that's not me. Like I'm gonna go attack the next one.
As I mentioned before, he had not walked a batter until last night, and even that one didn't really come back to bite him. It was a competitive walk right there, where the same thing sticks out to me, that there's just not very many waste pitches at all. Occasionally with his curveball, as with any guy, they sometimes spike their breaking ball, but that his ability, you see that cutter right there, how he keeps it low in the zone and keeps it on the edges. So that combination is I think it's legit as well, and I think right now he's pretty definitively the right-hander in this bullpen that I would trust most in those situations. All credit to Brian Hoeing. Like, he has made this transition really well to the pen himself, but there's going to be a kind of a ceiling on how many bats that he misses with the way that he pitches. He'll have to rely a little bit on his defense, even when things are going great for him. Whereas Fauché, he can just mow guys down pretty simply and pretty easily. We're going to go into a flipped fish on here. If you're not familiar, Reese, we pick a former player for each heading into each series that played for the Marlins back in the day and their opponent. So the Marlins Nationals won. First time this season that these NL East teams are meeting. Give you just a couple clues, biographical clues here, and see if we can figure out who it is. One thing a twist that I'm adding is I'm going to give you guys an approximate level of difficulty on this. I'm going to show like how hard I think it is to guess this one. This one about a 6 out of 10, in my opinion. A right-handed pitcher, formerly of the Marlins and the Nats, born in Germany. Debuted back in 2003, and as you see, spent a lot of time in the big leagues from 2003 to 2019. A 9-WAR player overall that started over 300 games in the big leagues, almost 2,000 innings. Going to go to break. Think about it for just a few seconds, and then we'll do the reveal on the other side, talk a little bit about the Washington Nationals, and some more topics that we'll explore on the Marlins heading into on this beautiful off day. Stick with us.
We have been representing people injured as a result of other people's negligence for over 50 years here in South Florida. If you get injured as a result of somebody else's negligence, it can be a car accident, it can be a slip and fall, medical malpractice, negligent security. If somebody else's negligence caused an injury to either you or one of your loved ones, give us a call. Our phone number is on our page, our website is on our page, and our email addresses are on our page. Please give us a call for a free consultation. We'd love to help you. Let Zach and I protect your rights.
And we're back on FOF Live. It is not John Rauch. That's, I guess, a decent guess, but this one more of a starter throughout his career. You got this one, Reese or Kevin? Know who this might be?
I don't. I'm really bad at these. Every time I hear you guys, I'm like, don't even remember that guy happening.
Yeah, well, the birth country is like a trick question because this is not a German guy. This is an American guy born in, I believe, a military base in Germany. Edwin Jackson.
Oh.
One of the ultimate journeymen, played for about 14 different major league teams. And his stints with the Nats and the Marlins are both really brief. So
that wasn't 6 out of 10, man. That was like 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
when
The Germany bar makes it difficult because we're kind of saying he's not German, he's American.
Well, Navi got this almost immediately. He got it before we even went.
Navi, though. It's Navi.
Yeah, it's pretty nutty.
Maybe he cheated. I thought that was
I would've.
yeah. So he thought it was super easy. I thought it was 6 out of 10. Kevin thought it was really hard. But that's what mix of opinions is all about on this type of stuff. As one thing, as the Marlins welcome the Nationals to town, I wanted to get into the curious case of Nasim Nunez, who I guess doesn't qualify for this category because he never played in the majors for the Marlins, but he was in the Marlins farm system for a bunch of years, drafted in 2019. It was a bit of a polarizing topic this past offseason heading into the Rule 5 draft about whether to protect him or not, because he just has this really unusual skill set, elite as a base runner and as a fielder in the middle infield, but someone that has just no slugging ability whatsoever and just general limitations to his whole approach at the plate. Ends up getting selected by the Nats. He makes their opening day roster. He's on their roster now. He doesn't play very much, but he's going to come back to town as a Marlin. But at the time, Reese, what were your thoughts on them, on the Marlins, a team that had such a thin farm system, willing to roll the dice on not protecting Nasim, him getting selected, and now the chances of him maybe getting returned at some point this season, given like how little he's playing over there so far this season?
Yeah, I wasn't the biggest fan of him. Like, you can like look at the tools in general, and you can just see like elite speed, elite fielding. The arm is surprisingly like amazing, but he lacks the slug tool, which you can live with, like a Xavier Edwards type. But it's the hit tool for me, and like it was always like high K rates, and it was just kind of not like his batting averages were low, even in the minors. I feel like it's a really hard place to live in, even as an elite shortstop.
Yeah, it was a lot of inconsistency with Nassim, but I mean, if there's one thing you always knew you were going to get, it's the speed, which he's already shown in Washington. I guess 1 stolen base in 7 games, and he scored 2 runs for them. But I mean, you got to give the Nationals a lot of credit. They're hiding this guy like the Marlins are hiding Kyle Tyler right now in the bullpen, and you got to give him credit for it. I mean, they're using him in good moments, and I guess high leverage base running moments when they need speed. And he's obviously going to be that. It's like a Terrence Gore type guy where you need speed and you're going to have it. Unfortunately, the defense hasn't been very good, but again, a super small sample size, -1, outs above average. But he's going to have a chance to hopefully play in this series and prove the team that unprotected him wrong, and he's definitely going to have a chip on his shoulder.
I have an article scheduled to go up on the site in about an hour about Nasim and how they're using him. There's nobody else in the big leagues that's being hidden on the bench like this for the course of an entire season to this point. He has, you see right here, he has batted 2 times in a month. He's been on the active roster for the whole month. When he gets into these games, it's as a pinch runner or a defensive replacement. Just one instance where he started on a Nats team that has this pretty consistent middle infield, especially at shortstop with CJ Abrams. But they're not going to, you would think that if they were willing to use this Rule 5 pick on Nasim, then maybe every once in a while they let him start a game and give Abrams a breather. But Abrams is like the same age as he is. He doesn't need a whole lot of rest. And he has pretty quickly established himself as a great everyday player right there. It's just it's a complicated place to be as a team. The fact that you're hogging a roster spot on a guy that you don't really use whatsoever, where there are other deserving players in your organization that probably want a chance, would deserve a chance to up.
The mic again, Eli. Yeah, it's still underwater.
I guess I got to just talk through it, but it's an interesting situation. Some of these cases, maybe they can just throw them on right there. There's a pressure. Doing favors to instance where they'll know what they're not playing. People might be making this choices so they can help them all the time.
Eli, I cannot hear what you're saying. It's still underwater, like really bad.
Yeah, I think I did piece a couple things though. If I can carry on it. I think you said that they just kind of want to hold on to him for future development. I kind of agree. I think that's where it's going. I had a conversation about it yesterday, actually, and it seems like they just want to hold on to him just so maybe they can get something. If they can just find a guy that can just do kind of what they're doing now, but just better. Like if they can actually develop his hit tool and become a half decent hitter, and he can, fend for himself, batting once or twice a week for him, and then getting all that defensive plus and that running, I think they would be fine with that, especially as a Rule 5 pick. Definitely, there's worse Rule 5 picks out there.
Yep.
I guess I unplugged my mic, so at least I'm using my computer speaker. I don't know. I think
Sounds
that
good. Sounds good.
Yeah, it doesn't sound as crisp as this one usually does. This one, it's been serving me so well for like 3 years now. This is like one of the only times I can remember where apparently I'll have to take your word for it when I listen back that it was unusable, and the commenters seem to agree on that. So I'll troubleshoot that and see what exactly went wrong right there. But yeah, thank you for letting me know. Yeah, he comes in well rested. He has not played since April 20th.
Jeez.
So nearly a week off since he last played. I would guess that at some point over the next 4 games, this is a 4-game series. At some point, he gets squeezed into this situation and makes an appearance one way or the other. This is just a general overview of all the hitters in this series. We obviously don't have lineups for the first game as we usually do right here. So we just take like a general look at everybody going on right here. Jesus Sanchez, I should have mentioned him with that Brave series. He had that one moment finally where he destroyed a ball into right field. He's had 2 home runs this year, and both of them have been absolutely clobbered. It's just that almost everything else he's hit has been on the ground so far. Who else do we got here? But I mean, he's far and away the team's leader now in average exit velo. Emmanuel Rivera, pretty quietly, has been like solid. When they got him, it was essentially as a John Birdie replacement, a cheaper version with more years of control. Had some limitations as an overall player. Got off to a slow start, but very quietly, Emmanuel Rivera has been fine, and the expected numbers kind of match up with what you're seeing. That he works deep counts. He doesn't strike out very much. He doesn't have any power, but he's been getting on base relatively consistently right there. I think he's second or third on the team in OBP to this point, just a little bit behind Rise and a little bit behind Jazz. Is there anything else, Kevin, that sticks out to you about the Marlins position player group as a whole, coming off a really ugly series where they were just limited to 3 runs? But overall, aside from beating up on Bethencourt more than we ever had, is there any hitter on your mind entering these next 4 games that you're going to be watching closely?
I mean, man, you just got to hope Jazz steps up. He needs to. I mean, they need him. He's hitting almost always at the top of the order, close to that at least, or sometimes at the middle. He's got to get it going. There's just another way to say it. He actually fares very well against Washington, slashing 278, 315, 548 with an 862 OPS. So he has a good chance to really get it going there. And this would be the ideal series. He faces who he thinks isn't a very good pitcher in Trevor Williams on Friday. So has a good chance there to really hopefully get it going. And Josh Bell, I mean, that's his former team. He knows that pitching very well. So that should be a good opportunity for him to get it going. Luis Rise finally looking like the Luis Rise we remember. Always hitting there at the top of the order. So this is a series the Marlins need to take and to really hopefully get something going. This is by far their best opportunity to win their first series of 2024.
They beat up on the Nationals. I think it was 2 years ago where both of these teams were out of the race, and the only difference between them in the standings is that the Marlins dominated them head to head. Last year was a little bit more balanced. It still won the Marlins' favor overall. Oh, yeah. I didn't actually realize it was almost as bad last year. Marlins went 11-2 against the Nats. Those games felt a little bit more competitive than the year before, but still, that was another difference between them. Then, entering this year, I think most people thought that the Marlins were still ahead of them in that pecking order, that even with some regression, Marlins would be 4th in the division. The Nats would still be 5th. And, overall, the Nats playing pretty close to what people expected of them. They're just 2 outs away from losing again to the Dodgers. I'll drop them to 10-14. So they're 4.5 up on the Marlins, but still well below 500 themselves. Is there anything on your side, Reese, with the Nats that you find kind of interesting? Any particular matchups that you'll be watching relatively closely with them?
Yeah, so I actually got to watch them play like 2 weekends ago in Oakland. It's pretty interesting. I don't think they handled velocity well. I feel that was something I noticed. Other than Black, their closer, the A's closer, insane electric stuff like 102.
Yeah,
Obviously that's different. But even like higher velocity, like their offense just kind of shut off the second like higher velocity came in. And so hopefully with like Puck's gone, but Tanner Scott, Calvin Fauché, all the guys that aren't like 6'0" can hopefully shut them down once we get through it.
Got to give a shout out to Jesse Winker. He has been very good to start the season. Second on the team in OPS. He is right now third on the team in batting average. I mean, he's gotten on base the most with a .418 on base percentage. I mean, he's been very, very good for this Washington team. So good for him. Honestly, he deserves it. He's really struggled these last couple of years, and I mean, CJ Abrams has been every bit as what the Nationals wanted from him.
Yeah, Joey Meneses. It seems that the magic may have worn off of Meneses after he had that out of nowhere breakthrough a couple of years ago. He's been slightly more respectable lately, but overall just got off to a pretty brutal start with them after being a staple of their lineup the last couple of years. And I think Keibert Ruiz, he just came back from the IL after missing a lot of time. Otherwise, they're missing Victor Robles as well. We've seen a lot of him through the years, but it's not like he's somebody that you really factor in one way or another. He's there and he plays good defense, but he's not around this time. So they have been, leaning a lot on Winker and on Abrams in particular so far to this point.
Luis Garcia has been great too. He's third on the team in OPS. He leads the team in batting average, hitting .314. He's been really good for them. I mean, you're kind of finally starting to see the Nationals turn into what they should be, that young, fun team, and they're going to be pretty fun to watch. And you still have James Wood in the minor league system. I believe it's Robert Hassel as well. I mean, they still have some guys from that trade deadline that they got from the Juan Soto deal that are still in minor league system. Thankfully, Marlins aren't going to see Mackenzie Gore. I believe they aren't, at least. They're still going to see we were talking about him the other day, the guy that really just dominated the Dodgers this last week, Mitchell Parker, I want to say it's who he is. He's been really good for the Nationals, put up zeros again, and they have a good chance to really take a series here against Miami. You saw Patrick Corbin was pretty good, I think, at his last start. But yeah, and then Sean mentioned Lane Thomas, he's injured, but Joey Gallo's also been struggling really badly with the Nationals. He has, I believe, 34 strikeouts and like one base hit or one single. So very weird, but still second on the team in home runs.
Gallo hitting 129, so that's slightly above the Nick Fortes line, but you never want to be close to
more
Nick
home
Fortes.
runs. So
He'd be second on the Marlins offense in F4.
Jeez. That's the thing with this position player group is just every single guy. Nobody has been hot to this point in the season. Like Luis Arias, he's that batting average finally getting right up around 300 where you expect. His defense has been taking a really big step back. Like that was a big storyline last year, is how he seemed to be solid at second base all of a sudden, and they were playing him every day and wasn't killing them. And now this year, Kevin noted before, like even during that Braves series, it continued to follow them around. There were some good plays in there, but also that dropped pop-up that didn't end up costing him, but almost did. I believe that was with Fauché on the mound last night, right? Where it's that pop-up into shallow right field, and Arias is really the only one that has a chance to get there. He was playing first base at the time. That's been another interesting detail here, where pretty consistently in close games, he gets shifted to first base late in games in place of Josh Bell, or in place of Emmanuel Rivera, whoever is there. They feel like Arias might be their best defensive first baseman, but not so much as at second base. And then even at first, he has plays like that where overall it just takes away a lot of the value that he adds offensively when that happens, when he's not getting singles as frequently as he was last year. The overall package just is not that much better than replacement level to this point in the season. That goes for the entire position player group. All these guys floating right around replacement level, if not a little bit below. So far, this is a look at the probable starters for the series. It is the 4 staples of this Marlins rotation so far that, for the most part, have been performing really well the last couple turns through. For the Nats, it is everybody except for Mackenzie Gore, who pitched today. So that's who they have right now. And yeah, Mitchell Parker's that one new guy, as Kevin mentioned, relatively. I think he's just a rookie at this point. So the Marlins have not seen him yet. That'll be a new test for them.
Yeah.
At this point, people are probably well familiar. The Marlins have not won a series to this point. They finally didn't lose a series for the first time when they played the Cubs, and they split those 4 games. But every other series they have lost so far. So this is, if you want to be realistic, this is a series that has pretty significant MLB draft implications for 2025, even though that doesn't go by reverse order when you talk about the lottery and where these teams might fall percentage-wise and their chance to actually win the lottery this upcoming year. That, the Marlins are these 4 games. That's a pretty significant chunk of their head-to-head schedule between them that could come into play at the end of the year, assuming that this is a non-competitive year for them. That'll be a silver lining, even though realistically everybody in this moment wants to win these games right now. They could be significant when we look back at them later on with this team. I did promise ahead of time that we would talk a little bit about the minor league side with Reese, because I know he follows that stuff as closely as we do. We touched on a few guys already at like the AAA level, but overall, this has been, at least to my eyes, it's been a mildly encouraging year. There was really nowhere to go but up for the most part with this farm system, the shape that it was in entering this regular season right now. Is that kind of your general take on it, Reese, that things are like slowly getting more exciting and encouraging down there with the Marlins affiliates?
That's what it seems like. A lot of guys are like changing like significant flaws they had in their games. Like overall, like organizational K rates are down. I've noticed a little more. I don't even want to call it BABIP luck. More like producing your own BABIP luck. More fly balls. Like Joe Mack. Yeah, Joe Mack has only hit fly balls, I think, since he got to AA in his like 3 games, which I enjoy. And then you got a lot of guys that are newer and like a little old for their leagues, like Mark Coley II, who unfortunately got hurt yesterday by hit by pitch to the hand. He's been killing it everywhere he's been. Tanner Allen's been doing really well, which is great because everyone was super hyped about him at first, and then that died real quick. And then even Jose Devers got hurt too. And then Yiddy Kepe is another guy who was getting pretty lucky at first. Like he was just keeping like just singles on a lot of ground balls. But it seems like he's elevating more and starting to hit line drives and getting those doubles and extra base hits.
Yep. This is an overview of the team performance at this point from the Marlins affiliates. They don't pay attention to that overall numbers, but when you have the team itself performing this way, it is usually a generally good sign that on the individual level, things are going well. Just last night, I got a little peek at Emmett Olson down in Jupiter, his 3rd straight scoreless start. There was so much attention paid to the very top of last year's draft, just to Noble and to Thomas White, that I feel like the rest of that draft class got pushed to the back burner. But Reese already mentioned Mark Coley. He's somebody that has stuck out for his performance at this point in the season, already earning a promotion. And now it seems like Emmett Olson, who was their 4th rounder last year, he might be on the cusp of getting pushed up to Beloit the exact same way after 16 straight scoreless innings for Jupiter, showing really good control. He's got a nasty slider that he locates really well, especially last night from what I got to saw, piling up 10 Ks with it. Even
Jake Brooks is also in that same draft class. He's been really good.
Jake Brooks also with Jupiter to this point. Yeah, his numbers overall really similar, and somebody that probably doesn't have a whole lot left to learn at low A might be due for a challenge of his own. Yeah.
Brock Vradenberg's going under the radar right now. I've been watching a lot of just the StatCast stuff come through, and he's hitting the ball hard. Like he'll be top 5 in recorded low A exit velocities. And at first, like a lot of them were ground balls, but now they're turning into like fly balls. Whether they turn into like doubles or sack flies, or like it's getting close. That Jupiter ballpark's pretty big and just not favorable with the wind. So I think high A could get a promotion to high A, and it'll question a lot of people just seeing his raw numbers because they all are below average right now. I think he could get that call up to high A relatively soon.
Is there anybody sticking out to you, Kevin, in recent days, at least? I know you monitor all this stuff really closely. In addition to the guys that we touched on, anybody in particular that you're really excited about watching really closely at this point?
I mean, you got to mention Yidi Cape again. It's really nice to see finally kind of a breath of fresh air for him in terms of just finding that success again. Really couldn't find it at low A last year, and then, or not 2 years ago, then couldn't, really didn't find it at Beloit last year. Finally, I know you take it more with a grain of salt, Eli, but it's great to see that he's hitting over 300, really getting it going, looking really good. Aside from that, man, it's been finally good to see Troy get it going a little bit. His first home run the other day. That's been a level that's really struggled offensively in some certain categories. Really, aside from that, Yoni Chirinos, I guess he's not a prospect, but gives you really good start there in Jacksonville. I'm liking what I'm seeing from Jupiter, man. I mean, Jordan McCants is having a nice year. That's finally another one who it's good to see repeating the level there for the first time. Can't think of anyone else at the moment, but for the most part, it's been a good year for the minor leaguers thus far, at least on an individual, numbers.
One other really under the radar guy I've liked is Austin Roberts in Pensacola. He's their closer this year. This is his second year in the organization after being a minor league Rule 5 pick. He's got something interesting. It's not overwhelming stuff, but it's really good commands of it, and it is translating to a whole lot of strikeouts so far with the Blue Wahoos this season. He's got a really good feel for the moment. He seems to really like those high leverage situations that they're using him in. He's just been so consistent down there. I think to this point in the season, he's only allowed maybe 2 runs in 8 or 9 innings, with striking out almost 2 guys per inning down there. Right-hander Austin Roberts. I would not be shocked if he sneaks up to the majors at some point this year. We were already talking about him all last year, but Anthony Maldonado is kind of just picking up where he left off last season. He's just unhittable at that level. I don't know. He has nothing else to learn. He's even on the 40-man roster right now. There's a little bit of congestion coming up once Chagua returns from the IL, but I have a hard time seeing why it is that somebody like Kyle Tyler, no offense to him, if he's still on the roster on Friday, there's no particular reason why he's around and somebody like Maldonado isn't, when Maldonado is performing the way that he is and what he how consistently good he's been when healthy the last couple of years. So that is just somebody else to watch that situation as well. But from here, we can hop right into prediction time, as we always do at the ends of the show right here. 4-game series. I'll remind people, 4 games. So if you are one of our super subs at Fish on First, you have almost 24 hours to get in your picks as well, and we track them on our leaderboard throughout the entire season. You can earn up to 3 points per series for predicting how many games the Marlins are going to win in the series and who's going to be the MVP, as determined by win probability added. An updated look at the leaderboard right now. There's a tie at the top between Daniel and between one of our super stubs, Michael Cronin, right there. I don't know if he's related to Declan Cronin. People have asked me that, whether they're a relationship one way or another. He's allowed to participate either way. He doesn't get any inside info on predicting this series, so he is eligible to compete in this stuff along with everybody else. There's me at the very bottom. Kevin is below the fold.
I'm not
because
even
he for some reason continues to be really optimistic about the Marlins turning it around, pulling up an upset. You've been called out multiple times on Twitter when people are like,
have I? No.
Yeah, they're taunting you, they're saying why are these guys doing this? They should know better. People are losing respect for us. I remind people that these things are unpredictable. We call it prediction time because we don't take ourselves too seriously, and we know that it's really hard to figure out how things are going to go in a 3-game or 4-game sample. Yeah. Every other team in the big leagues, it feels like, maybe with the exception of the White Sox, every other team has won a series. It's not the craziest thing to assume that the Marlins eventually are going to win one, but to this point they haven't, and that's why we assume some low scores across the board from Kevin, from Isaac as well. Isaac is not here because he's kind of been doing the same thing, and that doesn't mean you guys are doing it wrong. It just means that this team has been worse than anybody could have possibly feared to this point in the season. And I feel like that's something people get tired of us reiterating that, but it is true that no matter what you may have feared this 2024 season was going to be, for them to, at this point, be winning barely 20% of their games through a month of the season. It's one of the worst months in franchise history, and relative to like the general expectations of the team, it is really exceptionally bad. But it's only 1 month, and it is such a long season. As Peter Bendix continues to say, he thinks that things are going to turn around, and we should just say that this is kind of the start of their schedule as a whole getting softened and looking more manageable. 4 against the Nats, then it's going to be matchups against the Oakland A's, and might be the White Sox after that? It's
Ohtani.
Oh, it is the Dodgers after that. I think it's maybe after the Dodgers. I don't like to look that far ahead anyway, but at least these next 2 against the Nats, and then the Rockies. That's right.
Rockies before
it's the Rockies.
Yep.
That's right. Okay, so that's the team I was thinking of right there. So all things considered, those are teams that they should be able to compete against. We do have a prediction time video from Daniel Rodriguez. He's on most of these shows, but traveling in this one in northern Florida. So here's what Daniel is predicting.
All right, I'm here reporting live, doing my prediction at the University of North Florida. Have the track right behind me, not here for the Jacksonville Jumbo Shrimp, sadly. But my prediction for this 4-game setting against the Nationals, I have Washington taking 3 out of 4. Yes, that trend is going to continue for the Marlins. They do not take this series. I think Washington is very underrated, including their best player as of right now, C.J. Abrams, who is just destroying the baseball, will be my MVP. Back to you, Eli.
Okay, well, we will hop right into this now with our predictions. And here, as he often does, Kevin will bat leadoff. Your predictions, 4-game series, Marlins versus Nats.
I'm going to stay safe. Not taking the Marlins, not taking the Nats. I'm going to go with a series split. And I'm going to go with... I'll take C.J. Abrams to be safe. He usually plays very well against the Marlins, but man, I do think this is the Marlins' chance to finally take a series, but we're going to play it safe. Series split.
Reese, your turn. Just like that, your games, Marlins will win, and your MVP.
I'm going to go even split, 2-2, and then I'm going to say Ryan Weathers will be the series MVP.
Nice and concise from Reese right there. It's impossible for me to be as concise as that, but I also do see a series split in the works right here between these 2 teams. It's a fairly even matchup, and I think that's how it's going to play out right here. With MVP, I was surprised that I don't think anybody went with Luis Arraez last series, even though he's continuing to look more like himself, at least offensively, and that's generally what goes into his win probability calculations. I think Luis Arraez is going to get hot. He's really underperformed at home games this year after being one of the best hitters at home in games last season. So I think he is due to really break out and string together 8, 9, 10 hits over the course of the next 4 games for this team in order to at least get them out of there with a respectable 2 games apiece split with the Nats. That'll wrap us up here.
So Luis Arraez has been really underrated this month. He's batting like 337. You just don't notice because the first 4 games are just really unlucky.
Yeah, that is this early season analysis. It is a mess because the types of hot streaks and droughts you see to this point are totally normal over the course of the year. But when all your season stats are defined by that initial hot streak or cold streak, it leads people to make a pretty dramatic leap to conclusions that they shouldn't. So I guess that's you need to apply that on both sides. Maybe Christian Bethancourt isn't totally cooked yet. Maybe not.
Maybe.
2 homers.
This needs to be a big series for Bethancourt. Maybe that's my other prediction, a bonus prediction. Bethancourt gets his first hit of the season during this series. With Eli, Kevin Burrell, thank you to Reese, first-time guest here on the show right here. Fish on First Live, presented by Berger and Hicks. Still 24 hours until it gets started. Enjoy the NFL draft in the meantime, and we'll have on-site coverage for you every single game of this homestand. A lot of them from Kevin. Kevin, you got a lot of games that you're doing over this next week or so. Enjoy. I know you're going to be bringing us some great content over there. As always, go Fish.